He woke up late the next day, unrefreshed, after a troubled night's sleep. He woke up sour, irritable, and angry, and looked with loathing at his garret. It was a tiny little cell, about 6 paces in length, and a truly wretched sight with its dusty, yellowy, peeling wallpaper, and a ceiling low enough to terrify even the modestly tall. You could bang your head at any moment. The furniture was no better. 3 old chairs, not in the best repair, a painted table in the corner, on which lay several books and notebooks, under a layer of dust so thick that no hand could have touched them for many a day, and, lastly, a large ungainly couch which took up virtually the entire length of the wall and half the width of the room. Once upholstered in chintz, now in tatters, it served Raskolnikov for his bed. He often slept on it without bothering to undress and without sheets, covering himself in his old threadbare student coat, and resting his head on a small pillow, which he bolstered by placing all the linen he had, clean or worn, beneath it. In front of the couch stood a little table. One could hardly sink lower or live more squalidly, but in his current mood, Raskolnikov barely minded. Just the opposite. He had withdrawn from people completely, like a tortoise into its shell, and even the face of the maid, who was obliged to attend him and sometimes looked in, was enough to make him turn yellow and shake. So it goes with certain monomaniacs, who focus too much on one thing. His landlady had ceased sending up food to him 2 weeks before, but it still hadn't occurred to him to go down and have it out with her, even though he went hungry. The tenant's mood rather suited Nastasia, the cook and the landlady's sole maid, and she'd stopped cleaning for him altogether, except for the occasional half-hearted sweep every week or so. It was she who woke him up now. "Hey, lazybones," she yelled right over his head. "It's gone 9. I've brought you tea. Fancy a cup? You must be skin and bones." The tenant opened his eyes, gave a start, and recognized Nastasia. "Who's the tea from? The landlady?" he asked, slowly lifting himself with a pained expression. "As if." She set before him her own cracked pot, with tea made from old leaves, and dropped in 2 yellow lumps of sugar. "Here, Nastasia, take this, please," he said, fumbling in his pocket for a handful of copper coins. He'd slept in his clothes. "And go buy me a roll. Get me a bit of sausage too, while you're at it. The cheaper kind. I'll bring you the roll right now, but how about some cabbage soup instead of sausage? Decent soup. Made it yesterday. I put some aside, but you got in late. Decent soup it is." When the soup arrived, he set about eating. Nastasia sat down next to him on the couch and began nattering. She was a village girl and liked a good natter. "Praskovya Pavlovna wants to complain to the police about you," she said. He furrowed his brow. The police? What does she want? You never pay, and you never leave your digs. Clear enough what she wants." That's all I need," he muttered, gritting his teeth. "Talk about bad timing. She's a fool," he added loudly. "I'll drop by today and have a word with her." "Of course she's a fool, just like me. I suppose you're the brainy one, lying here like a sack of spuds and never showing your face. You says you used to teach children, so why ain't you doing nothing now?" "I am doing things," replied Raskolnikov. "So he was a teacher?" Reluctantly and sternly. "Like what?" "Work." "What work?" "Thinking," he said seriously after a pause. Nastasia went into fits of laughter. She was the laughing sort, and when someone amused her she laughed inaudibly, her whole body swaying and shaking until she even began to feel sick. "Suppose it pays handsome then, thinking?" she finally managed to say. "You can't teach children if you don't have shoes. Anyway, I've spat on the whole idea. Mind you don't spit in the well." Teaching kids pays kopecks. What good are kopecks? He continued unwillingly, as though answering his own thoughts. Suppose you want your fortune right now, then? He threw her a strange look. I suppose I do, he replied firmly after a pause. Easy does it, or you'll give me the creeps. What about that roll, then? Up to you. I nearly forgot. A letter came when you was out yesterday. A letter? For me? Who from? Don't ask me. I had to give the postman 3 kopecks. Will I get 'em back? Just bring it. For God's sake, bring it. Raskolnikov shouted in great agitation. Got pins and needles in my fingers. The letter appeared a minute later, just as he thought, from Mother in Ryazan province. Taking it, he even turned pale. It was a long time since he'd last received a letter, but now there was also something else suddenly squeezing his heart. Leave, Natasya, for the love of God. Take your 3 kopecks. Hello? Take your 3 kopecks, and please just go. The letter shook in his hands. He didn't want to open it in her presence. He felt like being alone with this letter. When Natasya went out, he brought it quickly to his lips and kissed it. Then he stared for a good long while at the address, at the small, sloping handwriting, so familiar and so dear, of his mother, who'd once taught him how to read and write. He delayed. He almost seemed scared. At last, he opened it. The letter was large and thick, double the standard weight, 2 large sheets covered in minuscule script. My dearest Rodya, wrote his mother, 2 months and more have already passed since I last conversed with you in writing, on account of which I have suffered and even lain awake at night thinking. But I trust you will not blame me for this involuntary silence of mine. You know how much I love you. You are all Dunya and I have. You are everything to us, our hope, our comfort. How awful it was for me to hear that several months had already passed since you left university, being unable to support yourself, and that your lessons and other means of income had ceased. How was I to help? With my pension of 120 roubles a year, the 15 roubles I sent you 4 months ago were borrowed, as you know yourself, on the strength of this same pension, from our local merchant, Afanasy Ivanovich Vagrushin. He's a kind man, and he was also a friend to your father, but having granted him the right to take the pension in my stead, I had to wait for the debt to be paid off, and only now has that come to pass, so I had nothing to send you all this time. But now, thank God, it seems I can send you some more, and in fact we even have cause to boast of our good fortune, as I hasten to inform you. First of all, dearest Rodya, your sister, fancy this, has been living with me for a month and a half already, and never again shall we be parted. Her torments, God be praised, are behind her, but I'll begin from the beginning, so that you may know how it all was, and what we have kept from you until now. When you wrote to me 2 months ago that someone had told you that Dunya was suffering all manner of rudeness in the home of the Svidrigaliovs, and asked me for a precise explanation, well, what could I have replied? Had I written the whole truth, you might very well have dropped everything and come to see us, on foot if you had to, for I know both your character and your feelings, and I know that you would never allow your sister to be insulted. I was in despair myself, but what could I do? I didn't know the whole truth myself at the time. The main difficulty was that Duneka, on joining their household last year as governess, accepted an advance of a full 100 roubles on condition of a monthly deduction from her salary, and so there was really no question of her leaving the post without having first repaid the debt. She took this sum, I can tell you everything now, my priceless Roger, chiefly in order to send you 60 roubles, which you were in such need of at the time, and which you did indeed receive from us last year. We deceived you, when we wrote that it came out of Daneka's savings. That was not the case, and now I am telling you the whole truth because now, by the will of God, everything has taken a sudden turn for the best, and because you should know how Donya loves you and what a priceless heart she has. Mr. Svidrigailov did indeed behave very rudely towards her at first, making all sorts of unseemly and mocking remarks to her at the table. But I am loath to dwell on all these painful details, for fear of upsetting you needlessly, when all this is now behind us. In short, although Marfa Petrovna, Mr. Svidrigailov's wife, treated her kindly and honourably, as did all the household, life was very hard for Donya, especially when Mr. Svidrigailov, lapsing into his old army ways, succumbed to the influence of Bacchus. Can you imagine? It later transpired that this madcap had long been nurturing a passion for Donya, but had concealed it under the guise of rudeness and contempt towards her. Perhaps he was even ashamed and horrified to find himself, already advanced in years, the head of a family, entertaining such frivolous hopes, so he ended up venting his anger on Donya. Or perhaps his vulgar manner and mockery were merely intended to hide the full truth from others. But in the end, he could resist no longer, and he dared to approach Donya with an explicit and beastly proposition, promising her various rewards and, what was more, to drop everything and take her away with him to a different village or even a different country. Just imagine how she suffered. Quitting her position there and then was out of the question, not only because of her financial debt, but also out of consideration for Marfa Petrovna, whose suspicions might suddenly have been aroused, which would inevitably have sown discord in the family. Donya, too, would have found herself mired in scandal. It wouldn't have just blown over. There were plenty of other reasons, too, and Donya could entertain few hopes of escaping from that awful house for at least 6 weeks. You know Doneka. You know how intelligent she is, how tough she is. She can put up with a lot and, even in the most desperate situations, find within herself enough nobility of mind to maintain her resolve. She did not even write to me about it, so as not to upset me, though we often exchanged news. The denouement arrived quite suddenly. Chancing to overhear her husband pleading with Doneka in the garden, Marfa Petrovna misunderstood everything and pinned the blame on Donya, assuming that she was the cause of it all. A terrible scene unfolded right there in the garden. Marfa Petrovna even struck Donya a blow, wouldn't listen to a word that was said to her, wouldn't stop yelling herself, and eventually gave orders for Donya to be driven off to me in town, forthwith, on a simple peasant cart onto which all her things were thrown, her linen, her dresses, untied and unpacked. Then the heavens opened, and Donya, insulted and disgraced, had to travel 11 long miles with a peasant in an uncovered cart. Just think, what could I have written to you in reply to the letter I received from you 2 months ago, and what could I have written about? I was in despair myself. I did not dare tell you the truth, for you would have been terribly unhappy, upset, and indignant, and anyway, what could you have done? Merely make things worse for yourself, I imagine, and anyway, Doneka forbade it, and filling a letter with trivialities, with such grief in my heart, was more than I could bear. The whole town was gossiping about this incident for an entire month, and it reached the point where Donya and I could not even attend church on account of all the contemptuous glances and whispers, and some even spoke openly about it in our presence. All our acquaintances kept a wide berth, and ceased even bowing to us in the street. I learned for a fact that some salesmen and clerks, is it clerks or clerks, had a mind to insult us by smearing the gates of our house with tar, so the landlord started demanding that we vacate the apartment. The cause of it all was Marfa Petrovna, who managed to blame Donya and sully her name in every household. She knows everyone here, and visited the town incessantly that month, and being rather fond of talking, especially about her domestic affairs and in particular her husband, about whom she complains to all and sundry, which is quite wrong, she succeeded in a short space of time in spreading this story not just through the town, but across the whole district as well. I felt ill, but Donica was stronger, and you should have seen how she bore it all. She even managed to console and reassure me. Such an angel. But by God's mercy our torments were curtailed. Mr. Svidrigailov had second thoughts, repented, and, presumably taking pity on Dunya, provided Marfa Petrovna with a full and certain proof of Donica's complete innocence, namely, the letter which Dunya, even before Marfa Petrovna had found them together in the garden, had been obliged to write and give to him so as to avoid the trysts and tete-a-tete he insisted on, and which, following Doneka's departure, remained in Mr. Svidrigailov's hands. In this letter, showing great fervour and deepest indignation, she reproached him precisely for his ignoble conduct toward Marfa Petrovna, reminding him that he was a father and head of a family, and finally how beastly it was of him to torture and render unhappy a girl who was miserable and defenceless enough already. In a word, dearest Rodya, this letter is so noble and so touchingly written that I sobbed when I first read it, and still cannot read it without tears. In addition, Dunya was vindicated by the belated testimony of the servants, who saw and knew far more than Mr. Svidrigailov assumed, as is always the way. Marfa Petrovna was utterly shocked and destroyed all over again, as she told us herself, but she no longer had the slightest doubt as to Doneka's innocence, and the very next day, a Sunday, she came straight to the cathedral, fell to her knees, and prayed tearfully to the Almighty to grant her strength to endure this fresh trial and fulfill her duty. Then, without paying a single visit along the way, she came directly to us, told us everything, wept bitterly, utterly contrite, embraced Dunya, and begged her forgiveness. The very same morning, without a moment's hesitation, she set off from ours to visit every house in town, shedding tears, and speaking of Donica in the most flattering terms, so as to clear Dunya's name and reaffirm the nobility of her feelings and conduct. As if that wasn't enough, she showed everybody Doneka's handwritten letter to Mr. Svidrigailov, read it aloud, and even permitted the making of copies, which I find a little excessive. She ended up having to spend several days in town, going from door to door, since some had begun taking offence at being overlooked, so a rota had to be established, with the result that she found people already waiting for her in every home, since everybody knew that on such and such a day, in such and such a house, Marfa Petrovna would be reading this letter, and at every reading there gathered even those who had heard the letter several times before, whether in their own homes or in the homes of other acquaintances, according to the rota. My own opinion is that much, if not most, of this was quite unnecessary, but such is Marfa Petrovna's character. At any rate, she fully restored Doneka's good name, and this beastly business left its ineradicable stain on her husband alone, as the main culprit, to the extent that now I even feel sorry for him. This madcap didn't need to be treated quite so harshly. Dunya immediately began receiving invitations to give private lessons, but she turned them down. In general, everyone suddenly started treating her with marked respect. All this helped bring about the unexpected development through which our whole destiny, one might say, is now changing. You should know, dearest Roger, that Dunya has a suitor, and has already given her assent, as I now hasten to inform you, and although the matter was arranged without your opinion being sought, you will not, I expect, be displeased either with me or your sister. You will see for yourself, from the very facts of the matter, that it would have been impossible for us to wait and put it off until we had received your reply. In any case, you would not have been able to judge all this properly from far away. This is what happened. He, already a court counsellor, Pyotr Petrovich Luzhin by name, is a distant relative of Marfa Petrovna, who did much to bring this about. He began by indicating through her that he desired to make our acquaintance, was received in the appropriate manner, drank a cup of coffee, and sent a letter the very next day in which he set out his proposal with the greatest civility and requested a speedy and decisive reply. He is a business-like man, always on the go, and now he's rushing off to Petersburg, so for him every moment is precious. Of course, we were very shocked at first, since it all happened so very quickly and unexpectedly. We spent the whole day deliberating and thinking it over together. He is a trustworthy man and well-to-do, with 2 positions, and already with capital of his own. He is 45, that is true, but he has a pleasing enough appearance, and a woman might still find him attractive. He is, in fact, a most respectable and decent man, albeit a little sullen, as it were, supercilious. But that might just be a first impression. In any case, I must warn you, dearest Rodya, that when you meet him in Petersburg, as is sure to happen in the very nearest future, do not rush to judgment, as is your wont, if at first sight there is something about him you don't quite like. I mention this just in case, although I am quite sure he will make a pleasant impression on you. Besides, when getting to know any person at all, one must take a measured and cautious approach, so as not to lapse into error and prejudice, such as may subsequently be corrected and smoothed over only with the greatest difficulty. There is much to suggest that Pyotr Petrovich is a highly estimable man. He declared to us on his very first visit that he is a positive man, but one who, in many respects, shares, as he puts it, the convictions of our newest generations, and who is the enemy of all prejudice. He said a great deal else besides, because he is a little vain, as it were, and loves an audience, but there are worse vices than that. Most of it went over my head, of course, but Dunya explained to me that, although he is a man of modest education, he is intelligent and seems kind. You know your sister's character, Roger. She is a tough, sensible, patient, and high-minded girl, though with a fiery heart. One I have studied closely. Of course, there is no great love here, neither on her side nor his, but Dunya is not just intelligent, she is also a noble, angelic creature, and will consider it her duty to make her husband happy, just as he in turn would see to her happiness. And we have no great reason as yet to doubt this, even if the matter was, I admit, arranged rather hastily. Moreover, he is a very calculating man, and he is bound to see for himself that his own marital happiness will be all the more secure the happier Doneka is at his side. As for any discrepancies of character or old habits, or even some divergence of opinion, which cannot be avoided even in the happiest of unions, on this score, Doneka told me, she is counting on herself. She says that there is no need to worry and that she can endure a great deal, on condition that relations between them are honest and fair. At first, for example, he struck me, too, as a little abrupt, as it were, but that, after all, may be due precisely to his frankness. In fact, that is certainly the case. On his second visit, for example, his proposal having already been accepted, he remarked in the course of conversation that even before knowing Dunya, he resolved to take a girl who was honest but without a dowry, one who, above all, already knew misery at first hand, because, as he explained, a husband should not owe his wife a thing. And in fact it is far better if the wife considers the husband her benefactor. I should add that he expressed himself in somewhat gentler and more affectionate terms than these, for I have forgotten the actual expression and remember only the thought. And besides, the remark evidently slipped out without the slightest premeditation, in the heat of conversation, and he even tried to correct himself afterwards and soften his tone. But still, this struck me as a touch abrupt, as it were, and I said as much to Dunya afterwards. But Dunya replied, a little peevishly, that words are not deeds. And she is, of course, quite right. Before making up her mind, Doneca stayed awake all night, and, thinking I was already asleep, got out of bed and spent all night pacing the room. Eventually she knelt before the icon, offered long and fervent prayers, and declared to me in the morning that she had reached a decision. I've already mentioned that Pyotr Petrovich is leaving for Petersburg. He has important business there and wants to set up chambers in the city as a private attorney. He's had his hands full with various lawsuits for a long time now, and just the other day he won an important victory. Indeed, the reason he has to go to Petersburg is that he has an important case in the Senate, all of which means, dearest Roger, that he can be extremely useful to you as well in every way. And Dunya and I have already resolved that as of today you can make a definitive start on your future career and consider your destiny to be clearly defined. Would that this came to pass. It would be such a boon that it should be considered nothing less than a direct expression of divine mercy upon us. Dunya dreams only of this. We have already ventured to say a few words on this score to Pyotr Petrovich. He expressed himself with caution and said that, since he cannot get by without a secretary, it would, of course, be better to pay a salary to a relative than to a stranger, assuming, of course, that the relative proves competent, as if you could ever be incompetent. But he immediately proceeded to express the concern that your university work may not leave time for work in his office. We left it there, but now Dunya thinks of nothing else. She has been in a kind of fever for several days now, and has already sketched everything out. How in time you may become Pyotr Petrovich's colleague and even partner, especially since you are yourself reading law. I fully agree with her, Roger, and share all her plans and hopes, finding them entirely feasible. And despite Pyotr Petrovich's current and entirely understandable evasiveness, he does not yet know you. Dunya is absolutely confident of achieving everything through her good influence on her future husband. In fact, she's quite sure of it. Of course, we took great care not to let any of these future dreams slip out in conversation with Pyotr Petrovich, especially about your becoming his partner in his legal work. He is a positive type, and might not have been best pleased, as all this would have struck him as mere dreaming. In the same way, neither I nor Dunya have breathed a word to him yet of our firm hope that he will help us in giving you financial assistance while you are still studying. We said nothing because, first, this will eventually happen of its own accord anyway, and he will probably suggest it himself without wasting too many words, as if he could ever refuse Donica in such a matter, especially now that you may become his right-hand man in the office and receive this assistance not as an act of kindness, but as a fully merited salary. This is how Donica wishes to arrange things, and I fully agree with her. Second, we said nothing because I was particularly keen for you to be on an equal footing with him at our forthcoming meeting. When Dunya sang your praises to him, he replied that in order to judge a man, one must first examine him oneself, at close quarters, and that he would prefer to form his own opinion of you when he meets you. You know, my priceless Roger, it seems to me that for various reasons which have nothing to do with Pyotr Petrovich, just my own personal reasons, and perhaps just the whims of an old woman, I might do best to live apart from them once they are married, just as I am living now. I am quite sure that he will be honourable and tactful enough to invite me and propose that I never be parted again from my daughter, and if he has not said this yet, then only because it goes without saying. But I shan't accept. I have observed more than once in life that husbands rarely take mothers-in-law to heart. And not only do I not wish to be the slightest burden to anybody, I also want to be quite free myself. At least for as long as I have a crust of bread to call my own, and children such as you and Doneca. If possible, I will live near both of you, because, Roger, in this letter I have saved the best till last. Know, my darling, that very soon, perhaps, we will be together once more, and the three of us shall embrace after nearly 3 years apart. It has been decided for a fact that Dunya and I are leaving for Petersburg. When exactly I do not know. But in any case, very, very soon. Perhaps even in a week's time. Everything depends on the instructions of Pyotr Petrovich, who will let us know just as soon as he has taken his bearings in Petersburg. He is keen, for various reasons, not to waste any time, and to hold the wedding at the earliest opportunity, before the next fast, if at all possible. Or failing that, straight after the feast of Our Lady. How happy I will be to press you to my heart. Dunya is jumping for joy at the thought of seeing you, and once she even said, for a joke, that this alone would be reason enough to marry Pyotr Petrovich. Such an angel. She is not going to add anything to this letter, and merely told me to say that she has so much to speak to you about, so very much, that she is simply unable to pick up a pen, because a few lines are not enough to say anything, and one merely succeeds in upsetting oneself. She simply told me to hug you tight and send you countless kisses. But despite the fact that very soon, perhaps, we will be together in person, I will still send you some money in the next day or two, as much as I can, now that everyone knows that Doneca is to marry Pyotr Petrovich. My credit has also suddenly increased, and I know for a fact that Afanasy Ivanovich will now trust me on the strength of my pension with up to as much as 75 rubles. So I may send you 25 rubles or even 30. I would send still more, but our travelling expenses concern me, and although Pyotr Petrovich has been good enough to stand part of the cost of our journey to the capital by volunteering, at his own expense, to convey our luggage and a large trunk, through some acquaintance or other, we will still need to put something aside for when we actually arrive, at least for the first few days, for one can hardly show up in Petersburg without a kopeck. Actually, Doneca and I have already worked it all out down to the very last detail, and the journey should not cost us too much. It is a mere 60 miles to the railway line from here, and to be on the safe side, we have already made arrangements with a peasant we know who has a cart. From there, Doneca and I will have ourselves a jolly time in third class. So I may manage to send you not 25 but even 30 rubles. But enough. I've covered 2 sheets of paper from top to bottom, and there's no space left. What a story it's been. How many adventures. But now, my priceless Roger, till soon we meet, I embrace you and give you my maternal blessing. Roger, love your sister Donya. Love her as she loves you, and know that she loves you boundlessly, more than she loves herself. She is an angel, and you, Roger, are our everything, our every hope, our every comfort. It is enough for you to be happy, for us to be happy too. Do you still pray, Roger? And do you believe in the goodness of our Creator and Redeemer? In my heart I fear, might you too have been visited by the faithlessness that is now so fashionable? If so, I pray for you. Remember, dearest, when you were still a child and your father was still with us, how you babbled out your prayers on my knee, and how happy we all were. Farewell, or rather, till soon we meet. I hug you close and send countless kisses. Yours to the grave, Pulcheria Raskolnikova. All the time he was reading, from the very first line of the letter, Raskolnikov's face was wet with tears. But when he finished, it was pale and twisted by spasms, and a dismal, bilious, angry smile snaked across his lips. Laying his head on his scraggy, worn-out pillow, he thought and thought. His heart was thumping, and his mind was in turmoil. Eventually, he began to feel stifled and cramped in this yellow garret that resembled a cupboard or a trunk. His eyes and mind needed space. He grabbed his hat and went out, this time no longer fearing to meet anyone on the stairs. He'd forgotten all about that. He hurried off in the direction of Vasilevsky Island via... I have to look this up. There are some place names that are just the beginning letter and then a long line, and then there's a number afterwards for the note section at the back. And I have no idea why they do this. So if anybody knows why, apparently it's Russian literature that does this, or classic Russian literature, could you let me know? Voznesensky Prospect. Via Voznesensky Prospect. As though he had some urgent business to attend to. But he walked, as was his habit, heedless of the way, whispering to himself and even speaking out loud, which greatly astonished passers-by. Many took him for a drunk.